1,300.
700.
I know that. Sold.
Sold?
Frank Fritz was more than just a familiar face on television. He was a passionate collector whose relentless curiosity fueled a unique career. But behind the scenes of the hit show that made him famous lay struggles and mysteries that only came to light after he was gone. What hidden treasures and secrets did his estate hold that have left fans and collectors alike completely speechless? From a childhood fascination with relics to a life shaped by friendship, fame, and fierce personal battles, Frank's story is as captivating as the antiques he hunted. Shocking estate discoveries. When news broke of Frank Fritz's passing in September 2024, the antiques community was already mourning a beloved figure.
And well-known American picker Frank Fritz has died. His co-star on the television show, Mike Wolfe, shared the news.
But the true shockwaves hit when details emerged about what was found in his estate. The contents of Frank's private collection far exceeded what fans and collectors had expected, revealing a trove of hidden treasures that left even longtime acquaintances speechless. Speculation quickly turned to awe as reports described rows upon rows of vintage motorcycles, rare memorabilia, and carefully preserved artifacts that spoke to a lifetime of dedication to picking and collecting. This staggering discovery hinted at a side of Frank few outside his closest circles had seen, a meticulous collector who held on to stories as much as items. The auction plans that followed only added fuel to the growing buzz. A massive sale that promised to unveil the full breadth of Frank's passion, from gleaming restored bikes to dusty works in progress. But the story didn't end with the mere value or rarity of these items. There was something uniquely profound about how Frank's estate would be handled, something that went beyond dollars and cents. Many who knew Frank understood his deep love for motorcycles, but even those closest were unprepared for the scale and care of his collection. The private garage where these treasures were stored had remained largely unseen, a secret vault that revealed the true extent of his devotion. Pieces ranged from classic Harley-Davidsons to Indian motorcycles and custom choppers, some pristine and others mid-restoration, highlighting a passion that endured despite life's ups and downs. What made the revelations even more compelling was the sense that each of these machines was more than metal and mechanics. For Frank, they were memories and moments of adventure, tangible reminders of journeys both literal and emotional. The fact that many bikes were kept as works in progress showed a collector who was as much engaged in the process as the possession. It was a testament to a man who never lost his wonder for history's tactile remnants. Rumors swirled about how these items would be dispersed, sparking debates among fans and fellow collectors. Would these treasures be sold off piecemeal to the highest bidders, lost to private hands in distant lands? Or could there be something more charitable or enduring at play? Within the industry, whispers circulated that the proceeds might not simply bolster an estate or business fund, but could instead serve a cause close to Frank's heart. This unexpected hint of generosity reframed the narrative. It painted a picture of a man whose legacy extended beyond collecting. It was about giving back, about transforming passion into purpose, even after death. The contrast between the sprawling private collection and the noble intent behind its distribution added layers to the story of Frank Fritz, turning intrigue into respect. Despite the initial shock of what was found, those who knew Frank felt the discoveries were in some ways fitting. Here was a collector who had spent decades unearthing history's forgotten gems, now leaving behind a personal museum that reflected all he had ever loved. The estate became not only a repository of antiques, but a symbol of his life's work and the relentless curiosity that defined him. Yet, for all the fascination with the treasures, fans and observers remained curious about the man himself, the journey that led to such a remarkable collection. How did Frank's lifelong passion begin, and what drove him to build such an unparalleled trove? From the mystery of his estate, we shift to where it all began. A young boy in Iowa with an insatiable curiosity about the stories objects hold. Early life and collecting passion. Frank Fritz was born on October 11, 1963, in Davenport, Iowa, a place where his love for history and forgotten things took root at an early age. While most children his age chased sports or comic books, Frank was captivated by objects others regarded as insignificant. Rusty coins, old beer cans, discarded stamps, even weathered razor blades. To him, every item carried a story waiting to be uncovered, a past worth remembering. This unique sense of curiosity set him apart and shaped his approach to life. As Frank grew older, his passion for collecting expanded beyond the smallest trinkets. What started as pocket-sized curiosities evolved into larger treasures: motorcycles, dirt bikes, and rare memorabilia covered in the patina of time. Flea markets and estate sales became his hunting ground, places where hidden histories waited patiently to be rediscovered. Frank didn't see picking as a pastime, but as a calling, an immersive dive into the layers of everyday objects. His early years were marked by a willingness to explore forgotten corners, from old barns tucked away along forgotten highways to quiet corners of abandoned warehouses. He was relentless in knocking on doors, sifting through dust and debris to unearth relics that others overlooked. For him, the thrill lay not just in the find, but in the tales that accompanied each treasure, a connection to people and times long past. Although many saw his hobby as peculiar, for Frank it was a serious pursuit that spoke to something much deeper. His instinct to preserve stories gave every item significance. It was about honoring the past and keeping memories alive through tangible objects. This foundational outlook fueled every choice he made as a collector and later defined his public persona. Frank started his first job in public service instead of working in the antiques industry. He dedicated 25 years of his life to work as a fire inspector in Iowa, which required him to maintain high standards of accuracy and observe strict work protocols while protecting public safety. The demanding nature of his occupation did not extinguish his passion for collecting. His collecting activities brought him to a specialized market where he collected items from firehouse operations. His collection grew to include helmets that showed soot damage and historical fire alarms and firefighting equipment that had seen battle. The fire inspector job allowed Frank to discover hidden locations which included abandoned firehouses and shuttered warehouses, and concealed back rooms that contained undiscovered treasures. These explorations deepened his knowledge and helped him realize the emotional and financial worth of these historical artifacts. The hobby started to grow into something bigger, according to Frank, who observed its development. His business venture began when he started to turn his interests into a commercial enterprise. Frank created his business reputation in the antiques market through his honest buying and selling activities which showcased his knowledge of the industry. Frank's Finer Things started as an antique store that specialized in firefighting equipment and exceptional items. The business started as a small operation which eventually developed into a successful national business that transformed Frank's lifelong passion into his career. Frank used his store business to meet people who shared his enthusiasm for searching antique items. These connections would become crucial in shaping his future, linking him to opportunities that would take him beyond the local scene. His expertise and genuine passion for the subject matter made him a respected figure who gained the confidence of both collectors and dealers. As his passion gained momentum, it naturally led Frank into uncharted territory, where his skills and instincts would meet new challenges and chance encounters that would reshape everything. From fire inspector to picker. Frank Fritz's transition from fire inspector to famous picker was neither sudden nor accidental, but grew out of years of merging passion with opportunity. Although he maintained a steady job inspecting buildings and enforcing fire codes, his evenings and weekends were often spent scouring flea markets, estate sales, and dusty barns in search of hidden gems. It was a balancing act, but Frank's heart was clearly set on collecting and preserving treasures with histories worth telling. His growing expertise in firehouse memorabilia gave him a unique niche, but Frank's curiosity soon led him to broader collectibles, from vintage motorcycles to rare Americana. He understood the value not just in the objects themselves, but in the stories they carried and the connections they formed between past and present. This understanding made every deal more than a transaction. It was a shared history brought back to life. Within the antiques community, Frank earned a reputation for keen eyes and fair dealings. His respect for sellers and dedication to authenticity fostered goodwill and strong relationships. These connections opened doors to new sources and opportunities that fueled his expanding collection and growing business. Frank established his business, Frank's Finer Things, after he opened a store that sold fireman equipment and fireman collectibles. The shop, which started as a small business, eventually became a central location for enthusiasts and a space where he displayed his discoveries. The shop operation taught Frank about current market values and industry trends, which he needed to succeed in his upcoming big career. Frank met Mike Wolfe, who shared his love for picking during this period because they both came from the state of Iowa. Mike viewed picking as more than a hobby, since he believed it developed into a major life choice. Their mutual interest created a bond between them, which later resulted in their work together as partners. Mike worked to develop a television show that would showcase treasure hunting expeditions when Frank joined the project after Mike convinced him to do so. Mike's business expertise and Frank's authentic personality created an obvious on-screen connection, which became their driving force. The two of them traveled across the country to discover hidden treasures, which they transformed into viewing experiences for millions of people through their show. Frank achieved advanced fame through American Pickers, which led him to use his influential power in his new public life. Frank spent his entire professional life traveling to different locations while he worked at his job and maintained his genuine self in front of television audiences. He stayed true to his origins as a collector because he always prioritized sharing historical tales with others. With the foundation of his picking career laid, the next chapter would reveal the complexities beneath the surface of friendship, fame, and personal struggle. Rise of American Pickers. Frank Fritz's partnership with Mike Wolfe was built on a shared obsession with hunting down forgotten treasures, a connection that slowly grew into something extraordinary. Though they didn't start as best friends, their mutual passion for picking sparked a bond that would soon launch a groundbreaking television show. Mike, with his sharp business instincts and big-picture vision, saw the potential to turn picking into a lifestyle that millions could experience, while Frank brought a genuine warmth and deep knowledge that balanced the duo perfectly. When American Pickers premiered on the History Channel in 2010, it struck instant gold. Over 3 million people tuned in for the first episode, instantly making it one of the network's most successful debuts. The show's appeal went beyond antiques. It was the authentic chemistry between Mike and Frank that captivated audiences. Their years of experience navigating the antique world lent credibility and charm, drawing fans not only to the items they found, but to the stories and friendships behind every discovery. The dynamic between Mike and Frank was unmistakable. Mike's keen eye for the next big-ticket item paired with Frank's ability to put sellers at ease and reveal the historical significance of pieces created a compelling balance. Frank was often the heart of the show, turning tense negotiations into friendly conversations and sharing his excitement for even the most obscure finds. Viewers felt they were tagging along on genuine adventures filled with laughter, anticipation, and respect for history. Behind the scenes, the two men had already built significant reputations in the antiques community, known for fair dealings and integrity. Their credibility was fundamental to the success of the show. Collectors trusted them, and sellers were drawn to their genuine enthusiasm. This foundation allowed American Pickers to capture the spirit of picking while showcasing the value of preserving stories through objects. The show delivered more than entertainment because it showed people how antiques should be preserved through historical education and craft expertise. His dedication to the show drove Frank to work on each episode, which created new collectors who learned to value past times. Fans of the series turned it into a cultural movement that generated excitement for each upcoming road trip and their subsequent findings. Danielle Colby took charge of antique archaeology operations, which created a close connection among the 3 team members who worked together because they shared their dedication to their mission. The 2 friends shared a common interest in exploring new territories while operating their business. The show used this friendship to create realness because its focus extended beyond commercial transactions to create connections between people and historical events. The path to success included multiple obstacles. The filming process required extensive travel, which forced teams to meet public demands while they faced mounting pressure. Frank maintained his dedication to picker work because he wanted to discover all the tales connected to his discoveries while he aimed to preserve the tradition of picking. His commitment to the show enabled it to continue succeeding throughout multiple prosperous seasons. American Pickers transformed Frank Fritz from a quiet collector into a beloved television personality, a role he embraced with humility and enthusiasm. Frank maintained his original nature as a person who loves to discover historical artifacts through his work after his public presence increased. The period during which he achieved fame at the show created a situation where his public success and private interests operated as two opposing forces. The complexities beneath their successful partnership soon surfaced, revealing a story of friendship tested by fame, personal struggles, and difficult choices. Behind the friendship and fame. While Frank Fritz and Mike Wolf's on-screen chemistry was undeniable, their off-screen relationship proved far more complicated. For years, fans admired their friendship as an unbreakable bond, forged through countless road trips and shared adventures. But behind closed doors, the pressures of fame, personal challenges, and growing tensions began to create cracks in what many believed was an unshakable partnership. The first signs that something was amiss appeared subtly after Frank's last appearance on American Pickers in March 2020.
Frank's final episode was in March 2020. He had left the show to recover from a back surgery that left him with 185 stitches and 2 rods in his spine.
Fans noticed he was no longer around, but with the world in turmoil and his health issues undisclosed, few suspected the depth of the struggles he faced. Over time, Frank's battles with Crohn's disease and a major back surgery took a toll, sidelining him at a moment when the show was still gaining momentum. As Frank fought to recover, the absence on screen grew more permanent. In July 2021, Mike officially announced Frank would not be returning. His message was polite and supportive, expressing well wishes and gratitude. Yet, Frank publicly dismissed Mike's statement as hollow, revealing a rupture between the two men that fans had never imagined. Decades of collaboration had not translated into genuine personal support during Frank's most vulnerable time. Frank's revelation that Mike never called during his recovery stunned many and sparked widespread speculation about the true state of their friendship. What viewers saw as close camaraderie behind the camera, laughter, trust, and companionship, was far more fragile when the cameras stopped rolling. According to Frank, Mike had been waiting for a chance to push him out, and once Frank was incapacitated, that moment had arrived. This revelation ignited fierce debates online. Some blamed Mike for abandoning a longtime friend in need, while others attributed the fallout to Frank's health and personal woes. Mike, for his part, insisted the situation was complex, claiming that everyone cared about Frank and that bringing him back had been a difficult process. A closer look revealed layers of strain built up over years of long filming days, travel demands, and mounting pressures on both men. Friends who knew both men described the situation as one of exhaustion and burnout rather than outright betrayal. Years of high-pressure schedules coupled with Frank's health battles made sustaining their relationship overwhelming. The friendship they shared seemed to bend under the weight of fame and personal struggle, creating a necessary pause and space from the daily grind. For fans, the reality was sobering. The ideal of a forever friendship made for great television, but underestimated the complexity of human relationships. Frank and Mike's story reminded everyone that even the strongest bonds can be tested by life's hardest challenges. The show had created a narrative of unity, but real life was far messier and more nuanced. Despite stepping away from the limelight, Frank remained deeply engaged with the antiques community. He adapted to changing times by launching a digital storefront and connecting with collectors worldwide via social media. This shift showed Frank's resilience and determination to keep the picking spirit alive, regardless of personal setbacks or public drama. Behind the scenes of success and friendship, Frank and Mike's relationship revealed the complexities of balancing personal vulnerability with public expectation. Health battles and personal struggles. Frank Fritz's public persona, as an energetic and passionate picker, concealed a series of private battles that took a heavy toll on him over the years. Among the most significant was his struggle with Crohn's disease, a chronic and unpredictable illness that attacks the digestive system. For years, Frank managed the condition quietly, relying on a strict diet that helped him lose 65 pounds. Yet the pain, fatigue, and uncertainty never truly faded. His approach was one of resilience. He refused to let his health define or stop him from pursuing his love of picking. Despite his determination, the physical and emotional strain of illness was compounded by additional personal challenges. Frank's rise to fame on American Pickers brought unexpected pressures. The attention and expectations that came with being a reality TV star made public appearances and daily life increasingly difficult. Frank admitted that the spotlight contributed to anxiety, quietly eroding his sense of well-being even as his popularity soared. The year 2020 marked a critical turning point. Frank's health deteriorated rapidly, culminating in major back surgery so severe it involved 185 stitches and the insertion of 2 rods in his spine.
Frank last appeared on American Pickers in March 2020 before taking time off to undergo back surgery. Despite Frank expressing his desire to return to the show, Mike announced he was officially fired from the series in 2021.
The recovery process was arduous and lengthy, requiring months of healing and rehabilitation. During this time, Frank also battled addiction, a private struggle that further complicated his road to recovery and shed light on the personal costs of his public life. The fans and the public believed that Frank had left American Pickers for a temporary break to recover from his health issues. His passion for picking and his bond with antiques remained strong, which made many people believe that he would return after his recovery. The production continued its 21st season without him, which raised doubts about whether he would ever come back. The production team remained quiet about his condition and future career plans in entertainment, which caused people to guess about his health status and upcoming projects. Mike Wolfe announced Frank's exit from the show in July 2021. The announcement, though respectful, surprised many fans who had hoped for a reunion. Frank reacted to the situation in a direct manner when he said that Mike's words lacked meaning because he felt abandoned by others during his time of healing. The unexpected breach of their relationship introduced a dark period that affected both Frank's personal life and his work life. Frank revealed that during his entire recovery period, Mike never contacted him to see how he was doing, which hurt him deeply because they had spent so many years working and traveling together. The revelation stunned fans and industry insiders alike, challenging perceptions of their friendship and sparking debates about loyalty and the costs of fame. For Frank, this absence represented a painful distancing from his professional partner instead of a normal work-related separation. Transitions often hinge on shifts that illuminate new chapters, and for Frank, that change arrived with an event that would transform everything. Final years and stroke. In July 2022, Frank Fritz faced one of the most devastating moments of his life when he suffered a major stroke at his home in Davenport, Iowa. The severity of the attack left him unresponsive by the time help arrived, and the situation quickly became critical. Doctors worked tirelessly to stabilize him, and after nearly a month in hospital care, Frank was transferred to a rehabilitation facility to begin the long, exhausting path toward recovery. A stroke's impact is profound, often stripping away independence and physical abilities once taken for granted. For Frank, who had spent decades on the road, striking deals and living life on his own terms, the sudden need for help with basic tasks was a harsh new reality. Suddenly, he could no longer care for himself as he once had, and the court intervened to appoint a guardian for daily needs and a bank to oversee his finances. This loss of autonomy was a bitter blow to a man who valued his freedom deeply. Medical expenses piled up rapidly, with reported monthly costs reaching $29,000. The financial strain compounded the emotional toll on Frank and those close to him, laying bare the heavy price of his health crises. Despite this, those who loved Frank continued to rally around him, offering support and care in these darkest hours. The stroke became a crucial moment, which changed Frank's relationship with Mike Wolfe because their friendship had already become problematic. Frank reached out to Mike for a meeting after 2 years of no contact, which led to their private emotional reunion in May 2023. The friends who attended the meeting described it as powerful because both men wept while they discussed their long-standing problems which had built up over time. Mike told Frank during the reunion that no one could take his place, which created emotional pain for them because it reminded them of their initial friendship bond. Their first meeting in several years created a situation which moved beyond their previous business arguments and their mutual dislike. The two longtime friends from the past established their relationship through common experiences which they shared during their active years of exploring the world. Their relationship had suffered through difficulties, but their connection remained intact. The people who were closest to Frank recognized that his condition would lead to his death when he reached 2024. Mike immediately went to Frank's side with his mother and a close family friend at the time of his final call. The space remained silent, while people experienced their hidden feelings during a situation which involved many years of complex relationships but showed a strong, unbreakable friendship. The last moments of life brought together past events with current circumstances. Mike held Frank's hand as he passed, offering words of love, forgiveness, and peace. The farewell became a deep human connection which existed beyond their public personas because they had faced many difficulties throughout their lives. Frank's passing created the end of a historic period which also brought about the restoration of their broken friendship. The path of Frank's final years was marked by hardship, but underscored by reconciliation, love, and the unshakable bond that defined much of his remarkable journey. Legacy and lasting impact. Frank Fritz's passing marked the end of an extraordinary era, but his influence continues to ripple through the antiques community and beyond. Known for his keen eye and infectious enthusiasm, Frank wasn't just a collector, he was a storyteller who brought history to life through forgotten objects. His ability to connect people with the past inspired a new generation of collectors and fans who saw antiques not just as items to buy and sell, but as windows into stories worth preserving. Perhaps most surprising to many was the revelation of how extensive Frank's motorcycle collection truly was. Hidden away in a private garage, rows of vintage motorcycles stretched out like a living museum. From carefully restored Harleys and rare Indians to custom choppers mid-restoration, the collection was a testament to his lifelong passion. These weren't mere possessions, but tangible memories, reflecting decades of adventure, craftsmanship, and dedication. Each bike carried layers of history, speaking to the journeys Frank had embarked on, both on the road and in life. He treasured these motorcycles not just for their mechanical value, but for the stories they held, the people who rode them, the eras they represented, and the artistry they embodied. Through these machines, Frank preserved a legacy of American motorcycling culture that might otherwise have faded with time. Beyond motorcycles, Frank's estate included carefully curated signs, antiques, and memorabilia that he had collected with relentless passion. These items captured moments frozen in time and showcased the depth of his knowledge and respect for history. Friends and fans alike viewed the estate as a treasure trove rich with meaning, far exceeding what most expected from a television personality. The treasures that will be used for Frank's legacy will determine what makes his legacy different from all other legacies. The auction proceeds will go to charity, instead of benefiting a private estate or business. Frank dedicated his life to giving through this funding decision, which serves as his final act of charitable giving. Frank's collecting activities led him to make a valuable contribution, which helped others in need. Frank shared his findings through his work, while he created an impact which reached beyond scientific discoveries. He wrote vintage motorcycle picking books and managed antique fairs and events, while he co-created picking guides which taught many enthusiasts. His way of presenting history made it both interesting and understandable to all who wanted to discover historical facts that existed in their current environment. Frank dedicated himself to his motorcycle and antique interests while he worked to better his community. Frank built relationships between collectors and dealers and enthusiasts from different countries because he wanted people to work together instead of fighting against each other. His work established an antique culture which welcomed everyone to join, while he ensured that picking remained popular through different generations and new picking methods. Frank maintained his dedication to his core values until his last breath. His last words, which he spoke softly, explained his mission through his belief that past events continue to exist as hidden elements throughout time. Frank understood that preserving history is more than gathering objects. It's about honoring the lives and stories that shaped them. Frank Fritz's life reminds us that passion and perseverance can turn a hobby into a legacy. From hidden treasures to heartfelt friendship, his story continues to inspire. If you enjoyed this look into Frank's remarkable journey and estate secrets, please like and subscribe for more fascinating stories like this. Thanks for watching.